A girl named Gwen came to a motel in a remote and deserted place to get a job. But stranger things started happening with her, including mysterious cars, calls from an empty room, and what seems to be a ghost. What is the truth behind the motel? What did she see in the pool? Is the motel haunted, or is there any darker truth? Who will survive this experience? The film began with Gwen Tyler arriving at a motel at midnight. She wasn't there to stay the night, but to start a job. The motel was in a remote area, and its owner, Teddy Miles, needed someone for the night shift. When Gwen arrived, she found the reception empty. There weren't many guests at the motel, so she began searching for Teddy. The place had a strange, eerie atmosphere, and Gwen felt uneasy. She eventually found Teddy, and both were startled by each other. Gwen had arrived earlier than expected, so Teddy was surprised to see her so soon. From their first meeting, Gwen realized Teddy was an unusual person. He wasn't unkind, just odd. He asked about her family, and she replied that she was alone and had experience in the job, so she would do it well. They had discussed the job over the phone, so Teddy was ready to hire her. Teddy showed Gwen around the motel and explained that the lock on the supplier room door was broken. He told her she would need to use a brick to keep the door open from the inside, as it could only be opened from the outside, trapping her if closed. As Gwen left the storeroom, she noticed a number of cars in the motel's garage. She couldn't determine if they were damaged or simply abandoned. She wondered if there had been an accident or if the place was haunted. The motel also had a pool, which was now in poor condition. Teddy explained that there had been a large hole in the pool the previous year. Despite considerable effort to repair it, the hole remained unfilled, so the pool stayed closed. Before leaving, Teddy told Gwen he had other tasks and was heading out. He gave her a menu from a nearby hotel and suggested she order food if she was hungry. When he was about to leave, Gwen asked for a weapon. Teddy was surprised and asked why she needed one. He assured her there was nothing supernatural about the motel, and that he had managed it for years without any issues. Gwen explained that she felt vulnerable being alone and wanted some form of protection, especially since the police would take over 30 minutes to arrive. Teddy agreed and told her there was a knife and an axe behind her that she could use if necessary, though he was mostly joking. Then, Teddy became serious and told Gwen that there were no enemies or real threats. If she encountered any problems, she could call him. After Teddy left, Gwen returned to the motel and saw large rats inside. There was only one guest in the motel where Gwen knocked on the door. She wanted to check if the guest needed anything. When the door opened, Gwen saw a strange girl with red hands who didn't open the door fully. Gwen was unsure about what was happening inside and asked a question, but the girl shook her head and closed the door. Gwen then went to clean a room and noticed a car outside the motel from the window. It appeared that someone in the car was watching her, but she chose to ignore it and returned to the reception. Feeling hungry, she decided to order food. Suddenly, she received a call from room 13, even though the room was empty. Feeling frightened, Gwen answered the call and heard a woman laughing in the background. She quickly hung up in fear. Determined to find out who was in room 13, Gwen grabbed a knife and went outside the room. Inside, she saw no one but felt as if someone was following her. Panicked, she picked up the phone again and suddenly a shadow appeared behind her. The shadow whispered, "It's for you," in Gwen's ear. Terrified, Gwen fled from the room immediately. Alice, a girl from room 6, saw Gwen in her distressed state and asked if she was okay, and Gwen nodded. The red hands Gwen had seen were not covered in blood. The girl was simply dyeing her hair. Her hair dryer in the room was broken, so she had come to Gwen to get it replaced. Gwen took her to the storeroom but made a mistake by not placing the brick to hold the door open. As a result, the door locked behind them. Both Gwen and Alice became frightened. Gwen explained that they would have to wait until morning when Teddy would arrive to unlock the door. Suddenly, Alice felt someone touch her shoulder and upon looking discovered it was a large rat. This made Alice even more scared and she screamed, disgusted by the rat. She told Gwen that her phone was still in the room and was unsure how they would handle the situation. At that moment, a man emerged from the storeroom. Gwen was frightened, thinking he might be the same person who had been watching her from the car. However, it turned out he was a delivery man who had brought Gwen's food. They were fortunate he arrived in time and opened the door from the outside. Relieved, the two girls ate together and talked. Alice shared that she had argued with her mother, which led her to leave home and stay at the motel. She planned to leave with her boyfriend the next morning. Gwen advised Alice to reconcile with her mother, emphasizing that family is a precious gift. Alice considered this as Gwen went outside to get drinks. While she was out, Gwen noticed that the car she had seen earlier was still parked at the motel, and someone seemed to be watching her. At first, Gwen had only suspected that someone was watching her, but soon she was sure of it. Panicking, she rushed back into the motel, dropping the bottles she was holding. Alice noticed Gwen's distress and offered to help clean up the broken glass, but Gwen yelled at her and told her to leave. Although Alice was hurt by Gwen's reaction, she understood Gwen's anxiety and walked away. Later, Gwen resumed her duties when a wealthy couple arrived seeking a room. The couple was rude and treated Gwen poorly, so she decided to charge them for the entire night instead of just the hour they requested. The man threw money at Gwen as he went to his room. Gwen suspected that the couple might be up to something, so she went to their room to check. Inside, they were simply spending time together. The woman sensed someone was watching them, so when she stepped out of the room, Gwen hid behind a car. As Gwen was heading back to her room, she felt something moving in the pool. When she approached the pool stand broke, and she fell in. From the pool emerged what appeared to be a woman, but was actually a ghost, who grabbed Gwen and pulled her under. Gwen screamed in terror, and Alice, hearing her cries, rushed to help. Alice managed to pull Gwen out of the pool and asked what she had seen. Gwen worried that telling the truth might make Alice think she was crazy, so she said, "Nothing, I just slipped." Back in their room, Alice asked Gwen again about the pool. She mentioned that the place was haunted, which made Gwen's face go pale because she hadn't known this. Alice explained that she had heard many stories about the motel, which was why she chose to stay there, believing no one would look for her. Gwen listened but felt angry with Teddy for not telling her the truth about the hauntings. Gwen began to trust Alice and decided to share her fears. She told Alice that something strange had been happening since her arrival. She had seen a car outside the motel twice and believed it was following her. Alice asked why Gwen thought the car was after her. Gwen recounted a traumatic experience from her childhood when a man named Walter had broken into her home, killed her mother and sisters, and then ended up in a mental asylum. Recently, she learned that Walter had escaped, and she feared he was now coming after her. Gwen also mentioned that her mother's necklace, which had disappeared the day her mother died, had reappeared in her mailbox 2 days ago. She suspected that the killer had sent it as a warning. Alice was deeply disturbed and frightened by Gwen's story. She urged Gwen to contact the police, but Gwen refused, saying she couldn't make a report based on suspicion alone and needed more evidence. Gwen decided she needed to leave the motel immediately. Before she went, she advised Alice to lock her door and leave as soon as morning came. Alice agreed, saying she had reflected on Gwen's words and realized she wanted to return to her mother. There, she noticed a ghostly figure on the CCTV. Panicking, she saw the same ghost following her. Terrified, Gwen called Teddy on the motel phone, angrily accusing him of not revealing that the place was haunted. She told him she would not stay another minute. Teddy tried to calm her, saying he had managed the motel for years and would check it out soon. After ending the call, Gwen saw a man enter the motel. Although he appeared decent, his gaze made her uneasy. He requested a room, and Gwen, suspecting he might be the killer, gave him a room for money. As she led him to his room, she attacked him with a knife, thinking he was a threat. Here we got to know that the man was not a killer, but Gwen's doctor. Gwen was actually a psychopath who had been in a mental hospital. 2 days ago, she had escaped, and years prior she had murdered her mother and sisters. The ghosts she saw were mere hallucinations, and the motel was not haunted. The doctor had come to retrieve her, accompanied by 2 nurses whom Gwen had killed. Alice, hearing footsteps, came out and found the doctor's mutilated body. Gwen, now dangerously unhinged, also killed Alice. Teddy arrived but was attacked and killed by Gwen before he could enter the motel. Weeks later, Gwen had taken over the motel and renovated it. A guest arrived to book a room, and Gwen welcomed her warmly. However, a blood symbol on the wall served as a warning. Gwen planned to kill the new guest, continuing her murderous spree. The movie ended here.